Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with justice.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'll start out. We've got a couple of members absent tonight. Actually, and their handles are excused. Did Aaron dial in or?
Not in there yet.
We're expecting Aaron to zoom in, but she's currently flying and I don't think the plane's landed yet. So that may or may not happen. If it doesn't, she's excused as well. And before we go any further, let's see. Here are the pledge, here are the announcements. I would take a motion to add an agenda item if somebody says, well.
So moved. Second.
Oh, I do, and I will as soon as I get a second to the.
Second.
All right. Paula, if we can get a voice vote on adding the change orders as agenda items, and then we'll fill in on them. Exactly.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Dr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lyons,
Yes.
Dr. Madden.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. And we did meet in executive session for 30 minutes prior to the next meeting to discuss some personnel matters. I guess we got an update on legal matters and I think that was about it. We might have talked about security briefly, but very briefly. So, having added that item, do we want to take care of it first? Or do you want to do it last, Paula? What works best for you? All right. Well, having added the change order, we'll move right to that. Vince, if you want to give a quick overview on it for the public.
So this is change order 2 for the Pauling project, over the track and turf project. Change order 2 is an additional credit of $11,317 to remove 2 field goal posts from the project. We are putting in the sleeves for them in case we would ever want to put football there or junior high or something like that. But we don't need the field goal posts themselves because there's a field hockey field, also the pads, and that difference coming back our way is $11,317. Change order 3 is installation of an expanded shot put and discus throwing areas, the concrete a little wider around the posts, so it's not grass around the post. It's a little wider. It involves some extra drainage for those so that it dries out quicker for our throwers, as well as some additional stone and some topsoil. So that change order is $13,397, net of around $2,000 that we'd have to pay in addition. Questions on change order 2 and 3?
You clarify that there was change order 1 was also a credit.
Change order 1 was also a credit of $18,000, which was some stone not needed in the scope of the project, as well as some milling not needed to take place. So yes.
Anybody else have any? Entertaining motion to actually move on that, then we can discuss it if necessary.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on that item before we go? Paul?
Dr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lyons,
Yes.
Dr. Madden.
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Now we'll get back to the regular order of things, which will bring us to our academic spotlight.
Our academic spotlight, yes. Tonight we have a great opportunity. We have some high school teachers here who answered to my call. We talk a lot about school work being relevant, being real world, asking our students to apply their learning. And when I think of those things, what came to mind were the various courses that Christy Osborne, Andrew, and Matt teach in our high school. And when I reached out to them, their willingness to come and share with us tonight is much appreciated. Is there an order to our presentation?
Any volunteers?
Apparently I'm good.
Mrs. Osborne, thank you.
All right, so I'm Christy Osborne. I'm the business teacher here at the high school. I am teaching social media marketing this year, first year around. The highlight of the class is really just looking across social media marketing platforms and having kids analyze the analytics, create, marketing posts and kind of promoting businesses and creating pages and posts for them. So we have, with permission forms, created some AI personas. So if we talk about marketing with our target markets, so students in the class had decided what their favorite businesses were in there. And they created customer personas for those businesses. First doing it manually and kind of working through what would a target person be for each business. And then using AI tools to create a persona. It's a lot easier and it was actually pretty succinct and so they got to, play around with some of that and they created pictures. One was for Sweet Frog, and then the other was for All-Star Bagel. We all know why they want to take social media marketing to be the next influencer, right? So we do an influencer project whereby they have, it's 3 parts, it's intensive. They choose a social influencer, media influencer. They do some research. They kind of see who their targets are, how often they post and what the engagement level is with their influencer. The second part is they get to be the influencer and create some videos and be the influencer and, have a target market and create posts that they're passionate about. So I do have a video, and in this, they had a choice to create a YouTube video, either like a top 10 video, a how-to video, or a reaction video. So this was, I had permission to show this from the student I asked. This is our Italian exchange student who English is her second language, and she really did a great job with her.
I don't have access to.
Look at my computer possibly. Not we can come back to it.
Yeah, I can't play.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. I was gonna go pay a snippet of it. But her video was around the world. They did an intro and then she chose, the top 5 beaches and destinations to go to in it. And she did a great job. So we can move forward.
Yeah, we can get that to
Yeah,
later on.
fine. We also did some mock Facebook pages. So the students again could choose the high school, choose, if they want to be influencers and choose their own Facebook page and create their own Facebook page. So we looked at Facebook pages they created, and then they created some posts relating to that, promoting, Lewisburg High School or, David is an avid fisherman, so he wants to be an influencer for fishing. So they created some posts with that. We've had some hiccups along the way, trying to get on social media filters, and it's been a little challenge at times, but they've had fun, and that's kind of just so far what we've gotten done in this. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? No?
Putting over
Oh,
it.
there you go.
Matt, you're up next.
Yeah, let's do everyone's favorite math next. So my name is Matt Leupold. I'm a math computer science teacher here at the high school. We got a variety of courses. Math analysis was the course that existed before my time. This is year 5 for me, but this is one that I've been doing for my 5th year. The purpose of this course for me has been to show 2 things. To show students that they can do rigorous and relevant math outside of the AP calculus classroom, and also to show them that there's more than just solving things. So course breakdown, I do 6, 7 units depending on the year. This year, you can see my last unit on voting theory is one that's going to be greatly applied in the next 3 weeks or so. I like to break it down by big ideas. So we spend the first almost marking period just talking about measurements, quantitative analysis, putting numbers in human terms, communicating information to others and how you can use that to support an argument. Unit we're in right now is flowing, so we're going to start to talk about some big ideas, some systems, stocks and flows and residence time, connecting that to both systems, both large and small. So actually right now we're in the process of doing some very basic climate models. Last class we talked about what would the Earth be like if we had no atmosphere. Next class we'll talk about what will the Earth look like if our atmosphere was just a piece of glass. Obviously we're somewhere in between, and then we'll eventually calculate the insulating factor of the atmosphere, comparing that to things that we use to insulate our building, for example. I do a little bit of graph theory, which is something that most students wouldn't see unless they are taking a college course in mathematics, but has great ties to psychology, to other types of communications. We do modeling and all different types, so I get to cover some of the steel standards, which is great. We'll talk about logistic growth. We'll talk about exponential growth, logarithmic growth, logistic growth, as long as also with polynomial growth. So I give students data sets and say, which is the best model to predict what's going to happen in the future. So it's always something that I can find relevant to them. We end the year talking about decision-making, probability, expected value. How does math help me make decisions? And then of course, we'll do the mathematics voting, something I started about 3 years ago. We look at how other sort of institutions vote, the different ways that votes can be, ballots can be collected and analyzed. And then we'll also talk about why that there's no perfect voting system. So that's something called arrows and possibility here. Go ahead. One of the things that I do enjoy about this course is that we get, so there might be a Canvas thing. So you might just need to, if you click on the word, it might try to take you to my Canvas page. So just flipping the slide with like an arrow.
Yeah, sorry.
One of the things that I love about this course is that we show our learning in a lot of different ways. We read, we write, we present, not traditional like math quizzes and tests and stuff, but it's very multimedia or sort of multimodal based, because a lot of the students that enter my room, they're not going to tell you that math is their favorite subject. So we'll do some things like estimating our personal consumptions of something, and then how do we offset that? So putting things into human perspective, we do 3 make an estimate projects, where students have to go home, they give them about a week or 10 days to collect something that they do or use, and then they write a paper, math to support their argument, to talk about their experiment, what went wrong, things like that. We try to connect math to things in the news, so we do some discussion posts where students write and respond. Like I said before, we'll do some regression using Desmos graphing software, free software, great for matching data sets up to mathematical models. A couple games, we talk about tipping points and their sort of impact in all of our systems. We'll do a school-wide election processing project, so we'll do that in about 2 weeks from now, where basically students choose 2 questions. They are responsible for polling the entire high school staff included. They collect the ballots, they process the ballots using 6 or 7 different ways that votes can be counted, and they see which are the different winners based on the different voting systems and counting methods. So that's something that gets students really engaged. It's, grassroots, they pick everything, they do everything. I just help sort of organize it. And then the last project is either an informational piece or an influential piece. So they have to use math to support some type of argument, which is usually a written component in a presentation. And just to show you some of the things that that I ask, the things that students sort of apply their knowledge to. One of my favorite ones we do in the first 2 weeks of the class, we're just talking purely transportation based, but how many pounds of CO2 are released from all the people, the 100,000 people going to a traditional Penn State home game? So it puts numbers in perspective. It does a lot of measuring and quantitative analysis. Something we did just a few classes ago is we looked at all the different types of energy, and we looked at all the different sort of factors in terms of where are deaths occurring based on creating energy with this source. And we look and see if everything was nuclear, if everything was solar, if everything was natural gas, what are the impacts related to those? And of course, we talk about the issue of why we can't choose one energy source. Like I said, we'll talk about the atmosphere, how that corresponds to the greenhouse effect. It's a fairly algebraic topic, but it's a big picture idea. If you didn't know, the atmosphere, actually not as good of an insulator as we think, but it's directly proportional, to the temperature. So if it insulates more, the temperature will definitely. We'll do some other psychology related things. So, something that I know Andrew covers in psychology, we talk about the bystander effect, we'll talk about information cascades, and what is a good strategy? What's a mathematically sound strategy? If I'm in an emergency situation, what should I do? We'll talk about tipping points. Like I said, we talk about voting systems. And then at the end, we talk about probability and expected value. So for example, if you go to the doctor, if you've got a family member that goes to the doctor and tests positive for a rare disease, does that mean that they have it? What are the actual chances? What do you do if you test positive for something that seems like a 1 in 10,000 chance? And we do some Bayesian probability theory to understand sort of how logic and odds work, both in our favor and against our favor. Questions for me? It's a course that I really, really enjoy teaching. I get some great student products. I get some great questions, right? So typically if I have a group of students who are interested in a certain thing, I had a group one year that was really interested in fashion. So we talked about the impacts of fashion. I had a group that was really interested in sustainability. So we sort of modeled it that way. So it's really great to have some student choice. And there's math everywhere. And I just try to show them. Questions for me? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. I'm Andrew Cook. I teach social studies here at the high school. I teach psychology, citizenship, global issues, and we'll be getting a intro to law course next semester for the first time. Here to talk to you about global issues, and not unlike these two fine people, this is inquiry-based. So this is taking student interest and driving that with curriculum. This is a course where, if you wouldn't mind flipping through, here's the basic faceplate overview, but I would tell you that in a sentence, we are putting the world in context and trying to understand exactly what's happening in real time, which obviously is really difficult. However, I think that's where the course kind of really sings, is that this is not easy. It is complicated. We start off, if you wouldn't mind flipping through there. Semester course, we do it in a seminar format. So every day we're gathered up in a circle, no raising hands. Nobody's ideas are better than anybody else's. We work purely from the basis of inquiry and student interest within all of our units. Now we have some basic frameworks of units, but from year to year, they change drastically. Last year, we talked a lot about Russia and Ukraine. This year so far, we've talked a ton about what's going on in the Middle East and the potential pitfalls there, the issues with the peace process in international relations. So we also do this thing called history in reverse. We don't consume history, we conduct history, which is a really different process. We take given known facts on the ground today and work backward trying to understand their constituent pieces, different groups involved, different components that might be competing interests or narratives, and try and piece those out and understand how does this move forward. Which I think students really appreciate, taking the here and now and breaking that down and looking through history to answers. And to wit, we looked in depth at the Middle East peace process and where that has fallen apart, where it's gotten close, why it's diverged currently, and some of the issues leading up to that with October 7th and current efforts by all parties involved with the UN and the US trying to create peace, and why that's probably pretty far off. Wouldn't mind clicking this. Here are our units. So we talk about globalization, global governance. We just finished up the Middle East and are in social media right now. And we were looking at a global view of social media, how different nations manage, what age they allow, what restrictions they have, and certainly how much access people have. Social media in Pyongyang is going to look really different than social media here. And so understanding some of those things, students end up writing a position paper as if they were a government official advising our nation on how we should handle social media. We are moving next into Latin America, Africa, then Asia. And you'll notice that there's not a lot of Eurocentric stuff here. We try to give some credence to some of the things they haven't had as much time with. All students will have had, by the time they get to this course, a world history or a European history. And so we try and broaden horizons a little bit more We also try and go post-World War II kind of world order, which again, most courses don't always get up to. So it's nice to have some of that context moving forward, particularly students who have gone off to college and done poli-sci. They found that to be really useful. And in terms of relevance, we start every class period, first 20 minutes is domestic and global news. Trying to understand those things, put them into context, and how we consume news, and what works well and what sometimes doesn't. Content directly is related to understanding modern ongoing issues. We try not to repeat a lot of what other course offerings have done, which makes it fairly novel. It also, because it's novel, is complicated and tough for kids to understand. And it's nice because in a low stakes environment, we can make mistakes. We can go, oops, that was a bad source, or, oh, wow, I used a news site that I probably shouldn't. Or, hey, why are these two news sites reporting differently? If you read Al Jazeera versus BBC, you're going to see some really different information, and there's good reasons for that. And students hopefully come to understand that. And it fosters really good conversation. I think cooperative interest and engagement through that Socratic seminar stuff. The conclusion. If there are questions, I'd be happy to answer. I know that's probably like water out of the fire hose, however.
Curious how in depth you got into the Middle East.
I was really fortunate. I was fortunate to take a Fulbright scholarship there and work for the State Department for a period of about 8 months. So I have contacts over there that I still talk to and have spent significant time in Jerusalem and the West Bank. So we had quite a bit of depth there.
So are they, so I guess they were probably interested to learn some of the historical,
Yes.
where all that strife and.
I think October 7th was kind of a good starting point in
Yeah.
understanding the back and forth. And so there's obviously religious context, political context, historical context, and these narratives that compete. And so we were able to get some people to kind of give us some good writings and, viewpoints, of which there's no shortage of. But the complexity, I think, is what they came away with.
I'm pretty sure you could do like years of college work based on just what happened.
8 months there, and I came away with a lot more questions than answers. Which again, I hope students did as well. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And true to my promise, you're excused. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Next up, take any comments to the board on an agenda item.
There are no comments on mine.
Then we will move to student council representative comments.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Erin DeSantis, president of student council here at the high school. I wanted to start with just some general student body updates. First of all, today, congrats to the cross country team. They did really well at districts. Boys placed first and girls placed second overall. So they're going on to states, I think.
That is true.
Okay, awesome. And also in just kind of general news, this past Monday was the voter registration deadline for Pennsylvania, and we have many students in the senior class who are registered to vote. I know student council member Mariah Drexler and also Lucy Goffin-Roy, who you heard from a while ago with the planting proposal. They both went around to 12th grade classrooms to inform students about voting and help them get registered a couple weeks ago. So we do have some students who will be voting for the first time. In general student government news, we had a successful homecoming celebration the last week of September. We sold about 400 tickets to our dance and made great profit from that, which we'll be using to fund a larger scale project this year, with the goal to be taking in student feedback, maybe even holding like some listening sessions for students to come to us and see what we can do to address any issues that are happening in the high school or fund a bigger project. And in the past, we've done things like buying the water level fillers on top of water fountains. And so things like that, that will really be a lasting fixture in the school. And now that homecoming is over, we are transitioning into our regular kind of committee-based activity. So we have a new committee structure this year with specific events having specific students kind of assigned to working on them. So we're going to be starting our work with club outreach, volunteering, social media, school spirit, homecoming, blood drive, Mr. Lewisburg, which if you guys remember, that was many thought was still a thing, but student council is taking it on now, civic engagement, holiday events, and staff appreciation. And also in the future, I'm planning to hopefully bring some other student council members if you guys can feel from. It's you've heard from me enough. So in the future, you'll be seeing different students and they can talk to you about what they're doing in their committees. I especially want to make sure you hear from some other classmates, they can get experience talking to you. Thank you.
Oh, Erin, stay still just a moment. We appreciate your information, but I want to share with the board what I learned about Erin DeSantis.
Okay.
Coca-Cola National Scholarship. This is exciting. 105,000 students submitted applications, including Erin. Erin has moved to the semifinalist stage. She's one of 1,336. The odds are greatly improved and coming through the rest of the criteria: academic excellence, leadership, service demonstrated in school and community. We wish you so well and hold great hope that in the end, you're one of those 150 seniors earning $20,000 scholarships. Awesome. Good luck.
Thank
Best
you.
wishes.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Select presentations would be next.
I think that's right.
All right, thanks for having me this evening. I'm going to talk to you about special education, continuing services, and I'll give you just a brief overview of what we've been doing in the special ed office. We're kind of quiet behind the scenes, just humming and moving along, so I think we would share with you a little bit of that as we go. Next slide there, Vince. All right, so service by numbers, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're working with. This is really looking at kind of our, special services gifted. We have 104 students. 504 students, and we have 61, and special education 325 and 57 under speech only. So it kind of gives you an idea of the services that my office, works with, and kind of coordinating with our various case managers and support staff to make things happen. So we're pretty busy. We have lots of meetings, and we're moving along nicely through this first quarter of the year. But I figured that'd be a good context to kind of jump into the special education side of things, which I believe was the purpose for me being here this evening, was to talk about our continuum of services and what is the district, Lewisburg School District, is offering our students who qualify for the very diverse, qualifications that make up special education, the kind of indicators that happen. So kind of breaking out this, I'm going to use my screen here, and obviously it's projected here. Kind of considering our 4 buildings in the district, Kelly, Lintown, middle school, and then the high school. When we get in that, we continue with services when the student starts, at the elementary level, how those services can flow through the various grade bands within the district, and how, consistent those services are. So what you'll see up there is we're going to focus on autistic support, life skills instruction, emotional support, and learning support, and we have some varying degrees of other pieces that we'll cover. But it really kind of comes down to FAPE, free appropriate public education, and the degree in which a student is included or not included in the regular ed setting. It's always our go-to when we're considering, placement for students, kind of, what we're going to offer. And it really comes down to an IEP team decision based on what those individual needs are. So there's no one size shoe fits all. It's always a consistent, ongoing collaborative conversation, because students' needs are always changing. They're growing, they're maturing, they're making progress in their current program. We have celebrations where they kind of move into a least restrictive, programming. So there's really great things that we can see through that. With that, so when you see, we have full-time services, and that's obviously the most restrictive with that, where students are, in a special education room most of the time, depending on what their needs are. And then we become least restrictive when we move into supplemental. Supplemental would be they're still in special education rooms for most of their day, but they're still included when it's appropriate and necessary to have them out in the regular room. And again, it's an IEP team decision. Then we get into itinerant services. Itinerant services are generally when students are included more in regular education, but are still getting some type of supplemental pull-out instruction, special ed room, depending on, what the programming is. And then we also have students that are fully included in the regular ed setting. So again, it's always IEP team decisions and kind of what the student needs. So I figured I would go over a little of that before we jump into the continuums here. So really, this visual we updated this year just breaks down, looking first at autistic support in terms of our students with spectrum needs of autism. Looking through that, we have the green indicates IU programs, which are new to the district this year. We have autistic support at Kelly, then flows through to Lintown. And then we just started this year as well, an autistic support program at the middle school, and that's obviously going to continue to grow and develop as we work through that. And then our students at the high school level have the opportunity to go to Work Foundations and receive autistic support services and part of their programming there as well. So we have this continuum there, looking at the autism population. And then we get into supplemental support life skills. These are students that need more functional daily living skills with a higher emphasis on more foundational learning as part of that. And when we look at supplemental life skills at Kelly, we have a case manager who oversees the supplemental life skills instruction. Those students are still very much included in the regular population, that they're just being pulled out for more like math and reading needs to address, some of their, foundational needs that might not be able to be fully addressed in the regular ed setting. Moving on to going to Lintown, we have the same thing. We have supplemental life skills instruction there that flows through to the middle school and then to the high school for life skills work foundation. So you can kind of see how the life skills instruction goes. Emotional support, it can kind of look two ways depending on how we look at it. The first one with emotional support, those are students that might need help with regulation of the feelings and their emotions. There could be some mental health needs there that we're addressing through our programming. So basically we have an ES program at our Kelly Elementary where we have a case manager who works, specializes in the area and generally takes on a lot of those students that have those needs. We follow them through the Lintown to the middle school. And then at the high school, we have two classrooms, two teachers, case managers that kind of spearhead those emotional support needs for students that need help in those areas. Then we get into the learning support side of things here. We start off really, it goes by grade band, so it's not too creative. We have first, second, and third grade at Kelly, and that spears into fourth and fifth at Lintown, sixth, seventh, and eighth at the middle school. And then obviously until graduation or a change in placement where they're going to Suntech or something else, we're offering those supports at the high school level through the learning support. Learning support's interesting because really that can be kind of a collect all. You can be a learning support teacher and still be addressing emotional support needs as part of your program. You can still be addressing autistic support needs as part of your programming. It's really important to note too that a student's diagnosis that, brought them to be identified as a special education student doesn't drive their placement. We're always considering needs. So just because you're an individual with autism doesn't mean you're going to be an autistic support. Learning support might meet your needs or so on. So it really depends again on the individual needs, and we're not label driven in our approach to placing students. So it's really, again, going back to that discussion, what does the student need and how can we best meet those needs within our program that we have. We also have some off-site areas that we look at. We have Five-Star Elementary. They have their mental health. They have their partial hospitalization programs that we work with. DTAC, the Diversified Treatment Alternative Centers, Soaring Heights, New Story, AEDY for Disruptive Youth. We have off-sites at various school districts, like Shigley School District. We have a student in elementary multiple disabilities classroom because our district doesn't have the population to have that classroom, so we're able to send that student there. We have a student in a multiple disability middle school classroom at the Milton School District, and then obviously we also send our students to Suntech to get those certificates in those areas as part of that. So that's our continuum of kind of where we are as a district and how we kind of flow through those grade bands. The idea is that it flows smoothly and we're able to give a consistent approach to our education through those various grade levels, and students have opportunities to either remain where they need or grow into other areas. So, any questions? It's a lot to cover and try to make it very visual for you. And then in the last 5 year, I think it'd be nice to give you a little update, kind of what we're doing in the special ed world. I know they're not here and they might not even know I'm saying this, but I really want to give a special shout out to my two closest colleagues in the school system. Christine Gottschall, a school psychologist, and my administrative assistant, Elizabeth Smith. They have been amazing to work with this year. They really help keep the wheels going because it's a lot sometimes, and we're really working through that. So they're amazing. I know they might not hear this, but I at least would like to share that with you. So kind of what I've been doing this year with my team, and obviously our 16 case managers in the district. I've been out working on visiting students that are placed out of the district. That was something that was super important to me. Coming in, someone new, I wanted to feel connected with those families and let them know that, hey, Lewisburg's still there, like when you're a student, if they can come back, when they come back, whatever that conversation is, we're still in contact, and that really means a lot to those families. They feel supported, and, I've been off-site for quite a few meetings this year, meeting with families, following up. So that's really been nice to stay in touch with them, and work through, connect them with services as they need. Another aspect of coming into my position, it was really important to me that as a special ed director, I be at the IEP meetings just because they are the most demanding. They really take a level of expertise, and I'm not certainly an expert in everything, but at least I try to navigate and connect and get people involved that can. That's really kind of the part of being a director of the program like this. I really prioritized scheduling IEPs at each building. Right now, each building is getting at a minimum 1 day a month one day a month dedicated to their building. It's usually 2, depending on the scheduling. So we're working through that. And teachers are signing up, they're contacting, getting parents in. It's been a really nice, smooth process. I've tried not to say no to scheduling and really make it work. At last case resort, I do ask principals at times when I simply can't be 5 places at once. So we work through that. But that's been a nice process for us as we kind of move forward this year. Something I kind of fell into and I really kind of enjoyed it is the MTSS model, our multi-tiered support systems and our processes in place. As a special ed director, you get hit up with a lot of, hey, this kid needs evaluated. And my next question is, well, what's going on? And then the second, what have we done so far? Because we never want to jump right to special ed services, right? And MTSS is a super important part of that. And it seemed like it was a really good opportunity for, especially at Kelly, where we started this, really go back and look at our processes. We have some really great educators that are really digging in and taking ownership of that and working through kind of setting up more streamlined processes and ways to support students, document the support. So when it comes time to identify for special ed, we've done this, it's time for that evaluation to move forward there. So we have that, and we're looking at reading, math, behavioral supports, and then occupational therapy are the 4 needs of Kelly that we identified as something that we should really look at our MTSS and the way we're supporting students before they get to, the evaluation process for special ed. So I've been working with those teachers to do that. It's been a nice effort so far. Earlier, this start of the school year, we had district-wide training for special ed staff on functional behavior assessments. This was basically an opportunity to grow capacity in our team in terms of working on basically tracking, evaluating, and documenting students' behaviors and working on putting together positive behavior support plans to help. This is really a great opportunity for teachers to kind of get more involved with that. It also allows us to kind of tier out when we need those functional behavior assessments, allowing kind of like the lower incident, less troublesome behavior, like that's kind of coming up to allow our staff to track that. But then it kind of draws a line where if we need to get like a BCBA from the IU or something, or via contracted services, we can kind of draw a line and have some more of those expertise come in. So it just was an opportunity to build some capacity in our staff. The other thing we're working on, and this is coming up, I'm bringing up with my staff, is I've really been looking at inclusion across the district and always finding ways to get better, because you can always get better with inclusion. We are going to be creating an inclusion committee, K through 12 across the district, really focusing on social and instructional opportunities and ways that we can continue to grow in that area. So that's something that my special ed case managers are really excited. They have great ideas, from special event days to really looking at programming and kind of, where we can, better serve our students in the future moving forward. The other thing we're looking at is our safe crisis management planning across the district. I've been meeting with Lydia Reese, who's the trainer for the district. She's our motion sport teacher at the high school. We're gonna be looking at our team approach across the district in terms of really making sure that we have like refined processes where if there is a crisis situation, we're responding in a planned according way that's gonna result in the safest outcome for our student and our staff. So that's an ongoing process that we're doing. At the middle school, we have a new life skills program there. We took students on a community-based training to Rohrbox Farm. I was happy to have a day with students because transitioning from the classroom, I really miss working with students on a daily basis. We got to go to Rohrbox Farm and learn about apples and kind of the process and about farming, and it was really informative. Rohrbox Farm did a really nice job with that. Students really had a great time as well. We're looking to do one of those a quarter to meet some of our students' needs within that programming for that need for that community-based training. And it was a really successful day. And the last thing, I'm sure this will come before you at some point. We're in the early stages of this. My first week here, probably the second day, I was hit up by an outside off-site program. They brought me like a little gift saying, "Hey, welcome, send kids our way when you need to." And then the second thing was, "Brad Richmond, you're the new guy. When are you getting unified sports here at Lewisburg?" Oh, hey, let me breathe. Let's talk in October. So every October is came and almost went at this point. I have some very passionate community members that are really in on this. They really want this here. I'm going to do my best to make that happen and bring that before you and have a plan and get that taken care of. I told them it's not going to happen this year because of the timelines of what we need to do. But I would love to have things in order and look at getting that started for next year. We have a lot of neighboring schools in the area. Shikellamy, Bocce, Shikellamy has a program. I believe Mifflinburg starting off, Selinsgrove starting one up. So there's a lot of colleagues in the area that we can reach out to and get Bocce rivals going. Maybe we can have help or something we can toss back and forth between each other. But it's a great opportunity. Unified Sports is it's just an awesome opportunity to include students that may not participate in athletics, but then also make connections. Because in Unified, it's really about having disabled and non-disabled peers fight together and kind of, bringing out that relationship. So that'd be a great opportunity for even our students that are in special education that want to be on a team, be service oriented and work through that. So those are just some of the exciting things coming our way. So that's all I have for you this evening. Any questions? I'm really gonna just keep talking. So. Thank you, everybody.
I do have a comment just because sometimes people run out. I just want to say thank you. I think that your presentation was wonderful. And we've seen this diagram before with stuff, obviously things change, but just your complete understanding of what you're saying. And not that other people haven't had understandings of what they're saying before, but your passion for it. I think there's a level of understanding and being able to present to us, and then like a true knowledge of what you're doing, a true joy of what you're doing, and really like from a level of just not this is my job and I like my job and I want to be successful in my career, but more like you want to be successful for your students and you can see that, and that's awesome. And thank you for that. And I'm just like so excited that you are part of our team, and like I'm so excited for our students that you're here, and just thank you for that. I'm just really, really excited because we just had a lot of special education stuff earlier, and I just feel like it's like a breath of fresh air for what this presentation was. And I ramble on and talk a lot too, so I'm totally fine with keeping up with that for the presentation.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm glad you're here.
Anybody else is excited at Jamie?
I'm super excited. I'm like really excited about it. I'm really excited. Yeah, I knew Chris would be excited too.
All right. We'll move on to the cooperative athletic agreement with SHIP. And who's talking about?
I will just simply say, I'm looking for the guidance and direction of the district. This is a year-to-year agreement, so going into it, it would be for this spring season. It would bring one player to the high school lacrosse team. I can begin the process of paperwork and completion of those steps with the approval of the board.
I'll entertain a motion to.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
I mean, I think this is a good route to go. We have very limited upcoming, I mean, and lacrosse is something that we have liked at the district, and I have concern with the feeder programs for it. And this child in general seems to be a good child. Don't foresee any problems, and it's year to year, so if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I think it would be a good thing to start.
And he's played in the local rec program, so any students who are freshmen this year would have played with him last year as well.
And we're not spending money for this, right? So we could do a voice vote?
Okay.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any? I think it's that, well. On to new business, the election of the Sun Area Board Representative alternate. So I will open the floor for nomination.
I nominate Jordan.
I second Jordan's nomination.
All right, do we have to do one at a time, or can we do the alternate the same?
I,
Go ahead, Erin.
sorry. I'll motion for Jamie to be second, alternate.
Okay.
Naming change.
I think she said Jamie, or she made a motion for you to be a second, and, do we need a second for Jamie?
Second.
Okay. I will, and is anybody in favor of closing the nominations?
I'll move to close nominations.
All right, so we have Jordan and Jamie, which happens to be they did a fine job for us the previous year. Again, I think we can do a voice vote to approve both nominations. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. We will move on to the SIP Diversified Education Program tuition, and if you want to remind us
I
about
do.
SIP.
Sure, this is a student of ours who is seeking to attend a program at Shikellamy in a vocational area that Sun does not offer. And under PDE guidelines, this is an option for this child. I am asking for the board's understanding. She begins her studies and works with Shikellamy. She remains our student and we pay the tuition. It is structured very similar to our ag agreement with Mifflinburg. And I ask that we move this forward.
The only thing I would add to that, just for the board's edification, we had a good bit of discussion about this in our planning meeting. We actually are statutorily obligated to approve this. However, because we're spending some money in the process, we're gonna go ahead and vote. We debated about whether, due to the fact that it is law, whether we really needed to vote, but we just decided we would because it's never happened before.
Yes.
It may happen with more regularity in the future, but this is the first time, but we really don't have an option. It's actually written in the code, so.
A lot of those things, though.
Well, I mean, I suppose if we wanted to be Don Quixote, we could go punch a windmill, but I don't know why we would want to do that.
So moved.
So I have a motion from Jordan. Is there a second? Paula, we'll take a voice vote, please.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski, yes.
Mrs. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lyons? Yes. Dr. Mattis?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Dr. Brandt?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Very well. On to new business, a board president's report straight from Detroit.
I think the sound quality is terrible. Is it okay for you?
Not great.
But it's okay. You can
Go ahead and try.
go for it.
I really like the teacher's presentation. That's all I'll say.
And the superintendent's report.
All right, I probably have better voice control being in the room with all of you tonight. We're at October 24th, marking period 1. It's in the books as of tomorrow. We had reference to sports. Fall sports are playing into districts and postseason. And as Erin shared, we learned that today, young John Hess won the district cross country boys event, and the team won the team event. So they're headed to states. Bailey Espinoza won the girls race. And while our team finished second, their time met the state qualifying time. So the whole team will be running our girls team as well at states. I am here to report 9 weeks in and longer for our administrators, but both Mr. Winton and Mr. Richmond have made a great effort in our district. They've acclimated very well. You may remember we put some mentoring in place with Jeff Hummel and Pamela Kramer, and I think that has worked well. We have appreciated their onboarding and acclimating process with us. I also share, we learned this week that we were successful in our grant application, $500,000 toward ongoing roofing restoration in our middle school. Gives us opportunity to plan for that. And Kyle, I'll tell him it's time to start budgeting for next year. We're already beginning to look at that process as well. Thank you.
Board and liaison committee reports. Did you have any reports this week?
Suntech met last Thursday. Not a lot to out of the ordinary, with the exception of the construction project is nearing completion. A couple things left, but we're excited that that's coming to a close, and we should be doing a lot of tours and open houses and opportunities if any board member wants to see just the construction that's been going on over there. So some exciting stuff.
Okay. Joe, anything from CSI?
Yeah, just real quickly, I had a CSIU meeting last week, including my orientation to CSIU. So I spent almost, all afternoon basically into the evening at CSIU. Unfortunately, in case anyone didn't get the memo, the board development conference that was supposed to take place next Wednesday was canceled due to lack of interest. I know many of us were interested and signed up, so we're not exactly to blame, but they were, certainly seeking any kind of feedback on, was it just a bad day of the week, or was nobody interested in doing this? Because they were really quite excited about it. And I was there on the day where they were kind of checking the RSVPs. I think they said 8 people out of the 170 that they invited said they would come. At any rate, the main take-home message that I got from my day at CSIU, and probably have already heard this before, but just it bears repeating, is that they are so eager to provide services and to help us as school districts, and to be the people that we think to call if there's some issue that's come up. They told me over and over again about instances where they do so much there. Their scope is a lot bigger than what I realized it was. And they don't expect the school districts to necessarily know everything that CSIU can do, but they would love to be the ones where we can call them for advice or assistance to either help us or link us up with some help. So as I say, Kathy, you probably already know that, but that was the message that they impressed on me over and over again. So that's all. Thank you.
All right. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any item that needs pulled out of that tonight, or if not, I'll entertain a motion to take it as it sits.
So there's a second.
Okay.
All right. Do we need to talk about anything in the consent agenda? If not, Paula?
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes, is this, sounds better? Can you hear me?
We're a little bit broken. We're just asking you to vote the consent agenda unless you needed to ask them.
No, I'm trying to say yes, but I don't know why you can't hear me.
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna try another set of buds.
Kraus? Yes. Ms. Lyons?
Yes.
Dr. Mattis?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Dr. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Hickey?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Right. Let's see. We have to vote on the accounts payable. That's part of the consent agenda. So what's that take us to?
Adjourning the business
Uh,
session. This is what the committee of the whole, unless we want to check comment.
Comments for non-agenda items, anybody, anywhere? No. All right, then I will entertain, I guess we're gonna do director's comments before we move to the business or the non-business portion. We don't have to.
Okay.
What did we-
At the end.
We'll do it at the end. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn the business meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. We'll adjourn the meeting. Do our committee of the whole. Anybody need a 2-minute break in between or can we break to it? We'll now begin the public work session. I'll call that meeting to order. And on the agenda for our work session tonight, which is notably absent members of the public. Data report.
Yes, that is me. Sorry, I'm just
All
trying
right.
to work the tech. Yeah, giving you some, a data report with, as well as some achievement disparities, item B on your agenda, are going to be mentioned throughout. So just wanted to start with some of our enrollment data, that is released on the Future Ready PA Index. But this is us, race and ethnicity breakdown, as well as our student groups. You can see that some of the populations of student groups are on the lower side. Brad mentioned a lot of those numbers for the current year. This is actually taking into account this past year. But this is kind of where we're at. As we look at some of that disparities, we can definitely see low numbers in those categories. But this is our makeup. Looking at a lot of assessment data, PSSAs and Keystones. These are our English language arts to start. Looking at grades 3 through 8 on this right here. This is showing 22, 23, and 24 achievement levels. And again, like in years past, regionally, our rank is very high, and in the 17 school districts, we're doing well in those categories, and 4 of those grade levels higher than the previous year. Those are different groups of kids as we go from the year to year. Looking at some of that cohort data as well, which I didn't get into, it showed some good positive trends or very neutral trends. And any questions throughout, please feel free to interrupt me, and we can definitely look at anything more in depth. Mathematics, typically overall, even statewide, they're not as high as English language arts achievement-wise, but you can see our regional ranks listed there and are trending upward in 4 of those grades. Again, multiple years since COVID. Because of COVID, we had some gap years in there, and so just going back to 22 made the most sense. And again, high regionally ranked from RIU ranking. And then science happens in 4th and 8th grade. Again, our number is very high in 4th grade. I'll mention this a little bit later on, but that test is going to be moving to 5th grade this coming year as a field test. Just wanted you to be aware of that. And again, very even from the previous year in 8th grade and in 4th grade. But again, achievement levels very high.
Does that mean, Vince, that the the fourth graders that took it last year then also going to be.
It does, and it's a field tested item, so we're gonna be getting a percentile rank for each student. It's going to not necessarily count for against us or for us, it's just kind of a field tested year because those kids have already been captured in fourth grade. It allows them, because our new standards are coming the following year,
Oh,
so it
right.
allows them to be ready
So it's
for that.
It
necessarily
creates
as high
gap
stakes.
less.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a transition to changing the year from fourth to fifth, but not creating any omission of test data.
And so fourth grade will not take it at all this
Fourth
year?
will
Only
take
fifth. Okay,
Fifth, and their scores won't count,
gotcha.
if you will.
And the state is pushing all districts to move to online PSSAs
Yeah.
next year. And so they're pushing us to pilot some online testing. So we're looking at doing science for that very reason, in fourth and eighth grade, trying it at both buildings, as well as our winter keystones, we're gonna try online to test it in a small set for those kids. It's not a full group of kids that typically take keystones. So trying that out in January, winter keystone, and then for science for fourth and eighth grade.
Does our current technology measure up to that?
I believe that it will, but again, doing it at a small scale is more beneficial as we test it out. Mr. Long, our network administrator, has done this at his previous district. And with our new wiring at the middle school, I'm confident that we'll be fine. My previous district went all in 1 year to online for the middle school. And we had very little issue with that, so.
One of the advantages gained to having moved to the Chromebooks, honestly, and away from the MacBooks is the test and the back-end configuration is conducive to the Chromebook. So that should be in our favor as well. And I will say, we have now twice given SATs only online as a test site. And they're here by the numbers to take those tests. It has worked. The AP tests this last spring were largely online. So we've had our toes in the water with online testing.
We prefer doing paper for PSSA, but we'll hold off a little bit longer as we can, but next year, everybody's moving in.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I didn't have any objection to it, but when you say they're pushing us towards online PSSA.
They are saying you
Is
have
it
to.
showing that there's advantages to the kids in any way, or it's just logistically easier? for
I
them
think it's
to conduct?
logistically as well as some cost savings, not to send tests to the entire state from Minnesota.
So It's
So
really
there's
on
some
their
cost
side,
savings.
that this is easier.
Yep.
Okay.
But they're also not necessarily writing out their rough draft and things like that. We can encourage them to do that still, but then they're also, using the keyboard as opposed to writing it out.
I mean, the whole world is moving that way, the whole testing in college, but I can see it in there, it's all online. For most of this, most of it, yeah.
We'll keep moving on. There's also some field tested items in the eighth grade one, but those, that won't be exactly like the fourth grade one moving to fifth. Switching over to Keystones. Again, our percentages right there, algebra, biology up from the previous year. Our literature down a little bit, again, different groups of kids from year to year, but again, regionally ranked very high. And these are across both buildings, algebra happening in the middle school and the high school. And if you break it out by year, it's a lot different because of the kids that are taking it. Some of those are retesters and things like that. But as a whole, across our buildings, these are our achievement numbers. And then I wanted to show you some data from our Future Ready PA Index. This will be public very soon. We're in a preview phase right now, but this is going to give some, just looking at the different subgroups. The colors do have a meaning. They are going to be green overall for that all student group if we have are at the current target for us as a school district. They're blue if we've exceeded the 2033 standard, and they are red if we are below our current target. So for English language arts at Kelly, for our third graders, we are in the green. Our goal, I think, would be to be around the 80% mark by 2033. And as you look at our subgroup data, you're going to see a lot of ISs, insufficient data for that subgroup. I forget the end count if it's 11 or 20 kids. 20 kids needed for each subgroup to have a data read for that. And as you can see at Kelly with the third graders, we've got some that are showing there trending upward in green versus red. Mathematics, similarly, and these numbers, if you were to compare them to what I had previously on the other slide, differ slightly. Future Ready PA Index uses a little bit different business rules to determine those percentages. They're looking at only students that were in our buildings for a full academic year, October 1 until the testing window. That skews or alters the data a little bit, whereas the other data is looking at kids that have been there just for a portion of time. As well as this data pulls out first year ELL students as well. It filters that data out. And there's a couple other business rules in there I won't get into, but green in both of those categories and showing you some of those subgroup data as well. Move into Lintown. We see blue on this category. For our all student group, we are exceeding the 2033 suggested benchmark. And then we have our breakout data there, or our subgroup data. And some of those, again, the populations aren't very large. So it's not a lot of students that we're talking about. So that percentage maybe is 1 or 2 kids, depending on what that number may be. But Lintown, our 4th and 5th graders, science 94%. This was not that high on the other slide. Again, for all students that are there for the full academic year, this was much higher. So typically, these numbers are going to be higher than the data that I showed earlier with using all kids. Both kind of give you different lenses to our data. Moving to our middle school, we've got our 3 different categories there: English, math, and science. And that's our full academic year students. And you see some things trending upward. We see some things that are areas that we can improve on with some of those subgroup data, making sure that they're making gains as well. And then move into the high school.
Vince, can you go back to the previous one real quick? So is the red because the disparity is so great, or because those students are underperforming relative to their cohort across the state? Or just to be very clear, because some of these differences are massive, right? There's like a 20, 30 point difference in performance.
Yeah, so this is, again, the number of students in that group are not as much, but and it's only looking at those kids that are full academic year. And if our participation was under 95%, it skews it even more. It's assuming that you are going to get credit for someone that's not proficient. So some of our categories may be skewed from that data point. But yes, this is it's trending. It's red if it's under the suggested benchmark data for our district. So green is if we're at our target, and blue is if we're at the 2033 target. Would be those categories, but it's a lower threshold for some of these subgroups than the whole student group.
I'm so sorry, Vince. I know you said this, but why are there 3 columns? What are the 3 columns with dots mean?
So if it was blue, the one column is for blue, the second column is for green, and the third is for red.
Okay.
Blue is if we are exceeding the 2033 goal benchmark.
Sure.
Got it. And
most
most of it on this one are
all the color lines.
And then at the middle school in mathematics, where we've got some that are trending down or in the red under that threshold. And some areas for improvement for those subgroup data, with our math data being in that green category. Does that answer your question, Aaron?
Yeah, I think I had kind of the same question as Jove, also looking across it. So a green arrow pointing down means it's worse than last time, but it's still okay, relative to the blue, green, red ranking. And a red down arrow means it's really bad and worse than last year.
Correct.
Okay,
Areas in mathematics for them subgroups, but for the all student population, we are at the threshold, but there's some room. Again, some of these categories are, minimal number of kids, and I'd have to check those categories to make sure that they were above 95 participation, because we could get some skewed data there because of that. And the reason for that is there were potentially some districts that were not testing their lower students, and therefore they had to put some rules in place to account for them. So I have to look at those populations to make sure that we were above 95%. Otherwise, it's a skewed data point. At the high school then, the color at the very top is based on the all student group. But you can see English language arts is blue, and above that, that 2033 benchmark number. And then if it's no arrow, it's kind of, there's not much of a trend difference there in the previous year. And then next I wanted to also show, besides achievement data, we have growth data, which is looking at PVOT data. And that's showing how the students should we expect them to do. Did they meet that, or did they make even additional growth? And so at Lintown, we are blue, which is meaning you're exceeding those expectations with an academic growth score of 100 or 91, 84. It needs to be above 70 to be green, and then we're in the category of above the state average, making it below. Moving to the middle school, we have a 71 there for our growth score, and then this is all of our math teachers on tested subjects combined there. I'm sorry, this is English language arts, mathematics in the middle. And growth here, red, but also these were a very high number to start, so high achievement in that category, making it a little bit more challenging to get to that green or blue level for growth. They're not making as the gains that they would hope to have made.
can I ask, oh, sorry, can I ask a quick question? Is growth scaled by anything? Like if you're already doing so well that you don't have a lot of room to grow, is there a proportional rating of like when you don't, if you have a lot of room to grow, it makes sense that growth, you could have a high growth score, but if you don't have a lot of room to grow, I don't know.
Have higher achievement, that growth is a little harder to attain because it's moving those high kids to an additional percentage point to try to get there. So it is, again, these are almost inverted sometimes, where our science, I believe, was blue here and red on the growth side of it. So again, it's high achievement versus how do we help grow those higher kids? But I don't think it is scaled to that. Got anything that?
No, I don't. Again, that's always been our frustration with growth being measured because of the high achievement. But it is reported, it's part of our evaluation system for both teachers.
Small percentage, but yeah.
So it's looked at. Yeah.
And then to the high school, again, high growth here in science, which is kind of inverted from the middle school. And we see those scores going across the board. But there's always some room we want to be growing our kids, even if they are high achieving. We want to still be able to make some additional gains. Moving to AP exams.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Do we have a sense of what's going on in science in the high school? I mean, we were kind of red across the board there, and obviously we have some growth, good growth. Do we have a sense of?
Let me just go back here. So growth is happening there. But if I looked at percentages, I'd have to go back to.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So we're at 68% achievement there. A little lower than our other ones. I have to dig in a little bit deeper to see that.
Having just received these, you asked the good questions that will be asked.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
As we learn.
Conversations with teachers and things like that, administrators. Yep.
So looking at all the testing scores, there's obviously many ways to view the data and draw.
Depending on what lens you're looking at.
The goal is always really, really high scores year over year, but realistically, we've never, you're always gonna have ups and downs. Looking at like a 2018 to 2019 snapshot, if you remove anomaly years of COVID, how are our scores, looking at it from that perspective, how do we compare to, which again, there's many variables, so I know that's not an easy.
Yeah, I did pull that up and it was just so many bars on that graph. We're very similar to what we were pre-COVID. And during the COVID years, you definitely saw this dip, not as far as other districts might have been. We didn't dip as far. And we came back a lot faster too. I think we were very similar to where we were pre-COVID.
Okay, and that's what I thought the numbers looked like they were, kind of pre-COVID numbers, but I was just curious. Again, that's just a different lens to look through, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I had that up there again. It filled the page really much, but yeah, it's another good lens to look at. And this data here, Future ADP Index, is eventually going to be public. You can get to the last year's data right now. I think in the next couple of weeks, it'll be available. You can dive into these and click on things and look at information and things like that. Wanted to share a little bit about AP exams. Let me go back one. We had 503 students that were enrolled in classes, and that's students per se, when we're taking more than one class. And of those students, they took 302 exams this past year. And so the overall sentiment at the very top there, 76% of those exams that we took, or students took, they scored a 3 or higher on those exams. And then it breaks it down here by subject area, how many students of that cohort that took the exam. French language, we had 1 student taking that AP exam, and they got a 3 or higher on that. So it's showing lots of different areas. I believe 11 were 100% that scored a 3 or higher. And then there's room that we can look at professional development, and we can look at, did that test change? Did that, look at other variables to continue to improve these scores. Because this is just one element of the courses that we offering many AP courses here at Lewisburg, many more than most districts would have. Questions on this AP data? And then moving to SATs, I believe the number that took it last year was around mid-70s. And these are our average, our mean was a 1241 this past year. The national average at 1024. And then it shows how many students, 20% of our population scored in that 1400 to 1600 range, 36 in the 1200 to 1390, and going down there, and as well as the breakdown for evidence-based reading, and then our math scores, 620 and 621 for math is the average.
You said 70 took it, so half a class?
I think it was around in the high 70s, yeah.
Because not all schools required anymore, right? Is that?
Or they're not planning to go that route, or they don't necessarily need that SAT score if they're not going to college, for example. It wasn't the full class that took it.
Right.
And again, they would have the following year to take it too, if they took it in 11th grade.
Right, yeah.
I believe the number was in the 70s. Let's move on here. There's some key takeaways. I mean, you can read these, but again, we're a high achieving district. Many were going up. We're high ranking regionally, first or second, almost all categories. I think there would maybe a 5th in there. AP exams, strong overall, some room for improvement there in some of those categories. Some of them were newer AP courses for us too. I think that'll change as we teach that class longer. High performance in our SAT scores. And we want to work to continue supporting all student groups, all categories, as well as our subgroups. And so there's room for improvement, things to work on, and share this with staff and administrators to make some positive gains during this school year and going forward. But any other questions or concerns, I can definitely take back and we can look at it and find some more data for. If you want to see some additional, we've got a really good document that can look at many years. Use a product called Next Day Data, which pulls our raw data and puts it in really nice pivot tables, which is been a nice asset for us.
Do we still do is it the STARS tests for math and that sort of thing? Like, are there intermediate tests that we can use to take a look at the disparities in performance to see if things are getting better over the course of the year, or if we know what's causing the issues, or where the gaps are? Because I think that the disparities in the performance are pretty significant. I guess I would want to know what attention we could add to that.
We do start testing in grade, this year, we'll be looking at grades 3 through 8, and doing STAR assessments across that grade level band, and looking at some different assessments at K to 2. But yeah, we have that data. They did take STAR assessments already once this year, and they'll take them, is it 4 or 3 times? I believe it's 3. Mid-year as well as before the PSSAs. And I have some of that STAR data separately. I can get to you as well if you want to see that in more detail. But there is lots of data. This is more summative data that we're looking at versus diagnostic or data as we're moving benchmark data as well. Okay. Any other questions?
I can't see all of the board right now, but does anyone else share the concern that we have such significant gaps and we should strategize, we should talk about the resources needed for whatever strategy is going to be implemented to address it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely look at how we can improve some of those subgroup categories, and look at, that group of kids and what we can do. We can look at additional reporting and have more conversations around those categories. And make sure that it isn't skewed in any way because of participation data. So that's kind of where I called the state today and said, tell me why these numbers don't match the data we have over here. And so we were learning more about how those are calculated because there are 2 different perspectives or lenses that are being looked at. So definitely some areas to dive into a little bit deeper.
And so can I ask one question? We heard in a previous meeting recently about the school lunch program and talked about the difficulty of identifying economically disadvantaged students sometimes. And I noticed that's a line item in these reports here. Were they getting that data on economic disadvantage from us, or the students self-reporting that as part of the test, or how does that information get linked up? Because it surprised me that they didn't have that.
That's a great question. I believe it's our free and reduced numbers that they're looking at here.
Okay, so they are basing it off the lunch program. Okay.
Provided they filled out the application and went into.
Okay, true. Yeah, that makes total sense. I just wondered. All right, thank you.
Also means that we're missing.
Right.
We're missing data there.
Yeah, but there may be additional students that we don't know that they're not reporting. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then I guess I'll go into comprehensive plan goal number 1, student learning. So if you want to pull out your in your folder, I don't have it for me. You guys do. Our comprehensive plan, I'll pull it up here on the screen in a second. This is a smaller image here I'm showing, but we have a publication that we've put together that we're planning on printing and mailing out to families. And so you've got a printed version of that. I wanted to get a sample of what it looked like in my hands before we actually do the full print. So take some time and read through that. Aaron will have one for you as well when you return. We can also put this PDF up there for you as well, where we can get this to you. Because of the district profile, it explains the letter from Kathy there about our comprehensive plan process. And so I think there's a good communication there about who we are and our purpose of this publication. It walks through our commitments that were there in a previous plan. We've got lots of great photos of our students and teachers throughout, which a local graphic designer worked with us on this, and it was great working with her. Talk a little bit about our programming listed there for those that maybe don't have students in the district or don't have students at the high school or middle school, and they're new to our district. I thought that was a good thing to add. And then where I want to kind of key in tonight is this graphic here, looking at our different goals. We have 5 goals that we've laid out in our comprehensive plan. And you can look at all of those at your leisure. You've seen this when I did the presentation previously, but I'm going to try my best to zoom in on that top left-hand corner for those on the video. See if I can bring this over. All right, so I want to give you a couple updates on those objectives for goal one. Goal one is focusing on academics or student learning. You can see the goal is to provide rigorous and relevant engaging learning experiences, supporting the needs of our students, of all students as well as our subgroup students too. So those objectives, I'll just give you a couple updates that we've had and things we've worked on so far this year. This plan went into effect July 1. That first one is an ongoing goal, looking at curriculum and instruction, making sure it's rigorous, engaging, and we're working on that all the time. So working on that in professional development, beginning of the school year. We just recently had an in-service where we went and did a conference style in-service over at Susquehanna University. Our teachers are collaborating with our administrators during professional time. We're working to get better and serve our students. Our principals are doing walkthroughs. Kathy and I are doing walkthroughs, observations, again, on the focus of student learning. And the curriculum aspect of that, we're constantly looking at revising our curriculum maps as well. Bullet 2, looking at structured literacy. I believe it was just one meeting ago or 2 meetings ago. Mrs. Arian Frake was here and talked about structured literacy, some of our new resources using 95% group, which is focusing on phonics instruction, explicitly teaching phonics, and making that switch, and having Mrs. Arian Frake as a literacy coach this year has been a great addition. And so that is moving us forward as we promote structured literacy and moving our kids to be great readers. Science, we talked about before, science standards, the Steele standards go into effect next school year, science in 5th grade, this coming year for PSSAs. So we're looking at how those standards can be reflected in our curriculum maps, our resources. We purchased some new resources this summer for grades 3, 4, and 5. And then analyzing and looking at what we're doing at the middle school for Steele standards and making sure that we're using those standards. So that's going to be some ongoing work this year as we look to implement those standards for the following year.
Do those standards hook to the exam for the PSSA?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's why the field tested items are in there so that they can kind of figure that piece out.
The current iteration are the 1992 science
Oh,
standards.
wonderful.
Producing new standardized tests is a multi-million-dollar.
For a state of our size,
Yeah.
yeah. And the Steele standards model very similar to the next gen standards that are more of a national approach. There's some differences. Pennsylvania typically put their own lens on it. So the ease has changed over time, and but moving forward with that in the next school year is in effect July 1. Covered that. Mr. Richmond talked about MTSS a little bit in his presentation. He and I and Kathy were at some previous meetings. We're looking to continually improve that process as we look at how do we get students support, working with our reading specialist. Mrs. Gottschall was at that meeting, our school psychologist, also guidance counselors at Kelly were a part of that, our principals. And so trying to, just continue to help students. How do we help teachers identify getting some additional supports in place so that they don't need to be identified in any way, but they can just get the support that they need and move flexibly as well through that process. I talked about AI before with you. AI is a big topic in, I'm sure, in higher ed as well, but higher ed as well as K-12 space. We did some training on that during our in-service days before the school year, as well as October 13th, when we did some training. One of the focuses was AI. One of our keynotes focused on the topic of AI and had some really good breakout sessions. Our goal for that is to put together like a teacher and student task force with the goal of putting together some guidelines for teachers and for students, as well as some policy recommendations to bring to you, to have a policy on artificial intelligence and how that's utilized. It started kind of in our policy committee, but thought, a task force, some learning happening with some key teachers, those that are using it now and dabbling in some AI stuff, but not wanting to exclude students from that process, having them be a part of that committee, I thought would be a great learning experience. So hopefully having that during kind of the end of a school day, but hoping to have some committee meetings and happen pretty soon this school year, definitely happening. Professional development, I mentioned a couple times, definitely always want to make sure we're looking at best practices. Another in-service day coming up in January. We're going to need to also put in some compliance training that we've done. We'll be doing virtually with our product Vector. Establishing partnerships with businesses and universities, real world opportunities. I think tonight you've heard 3 teachers as well as the one in your folder of some real world application. Some of that math stuff, being a former math teacher, I thought was just awesome seeing how it's utilized in the real world and having conversations, getting kids excited about math. At the high school level can be a challenge at times. And so love that. How do we connect more with universities? Maybe considering additional articulation agreements and things like that. And partnerships is an ongoing process. Again, this is a 3-year plan. So we're getting started on a lot of these things, but there's room to do additional things going forward. And then lastly, that objective there, working with students individually to create personalized post-secondary planning. Our high school counselors meet individually with all of our juniors. Each of our counselors does a third of our class alphabetically by last name. And so they're having those individual conversations. They're having some class meetings as well. We've got high school advisory meetings that happen that lends itself to some small group conversations. So putting some of those things in place and then looking to see what can we do new this school year into next. So looking at some different resources and products for how we put courses out there to our students and to our families. So there's a lot around student learning that's happening now, but there's also some things to do during the school year and the next 2 school years as a part of this plan. We wanted to give you kind of an early preview before we send this out. It'll probably take about 2 to 3 weeks to get them all sent out bulk mailing. But the print is probably going to happen probably next week. But you guys got the early release in front of you. So any questions on any of that publication or looking at goal 1 that we can entertain tonight? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The last item on our agenda for discussion tonight would be a further discussion on the charge for the Community Relations Committee. I was here at the last meeting, so probably not the best part. I don't know where you left off.
Yeah. In my notes, I have us discussing a community engagement committee, and we decided not to use task force, and we decided to not say government or relations was my notes, but I don't know that I captured it correctly. On our wish list, if everyone recalls, we had things like meeting with liaisons from the other large organizations. We talked a lot about transparency and communication across organizations, and so that the public would kind of be able to know as well. Partnerships just came up in Vince's explanation of our first goal, and we talked about partnership and other shared goals as a community. We want it to be a great place to live. We want employers to be able to brag about the schools. We want people to know what the other large organizations are doing. And then I have this note, and I hope someone can remind me what it meant. Connect via additional agreements. And Vince, you just said something like that, but I don't think that's what my note was about. Does anyone remember what that part of the conversation was about?
Yeah, I mentioned articulation agreements, but I'm not sure if that's what you're stating.
No, these are my notes from last time. So it was, we do have some nice arrangements, right? We have a good relationship with Geisinger through our sports training. We have a good relationship with, the way that we use facilities, not anymore with the tennis courts, but we use some Bucknell facilities and other places. Were there any other things that had come up in terms of other places we'd want to partner with? We have a great relationship with our local police force. Our school resource officers have a good working relationship with them, and we should include them in our community engagement committee. Anybody else want to share ideas or notes that they recall?
I think too, we had talked about, trying to engage more with or communicate more with, elected officials, state representatives. That doesn't like fit with what your note says, but that was one of the groups that we said we were looking to engage more with.
Which is why
Absolutely, yeah.
community relations as a potential group.
Right.
and There's multiple different pieces to it.
Aaron, do we have a sense of who invite to participate in this committee from beyond the board?
Sure, we definitely have folks that we are regularly in touch with at Bucknell, for example, at Evangelical, now Wellspan, Geisinger sort of, but mostly through our, like the athletic training. I just mentioned like our police force. We do talk with the borough and the townships on occasion as needed. It may come up more now depending on some of these recent developments with our relationship with Kelly Township. I think if it's a who in each place, I think that particularly Kathy would know some of the who people that we have spoken with in the past. If we think there's new folks or folks that we haven't engaged before, that's probably where our blind spots are.
And Kathy would be our administrative liaison for the committee, correct?
I would think so, her Vince. Okay, so just to, maybe people are feeling shy, but how about if we just write a charge? So is everyone okay with a community engagement committee? And it is a standing committee, not an ad hoc committee. Does that already sound good to everyone? Okay. And then
Maybe do is write a handwritten note to Jean Y'all's office, thanking for the grant.
Yeah, thanking his
Because I just learned that from the conference we went to, and his office is one that said they highly appreciate that.
There we
All
go. To do,
Thank you,
right
note.
there.
For $500,000.
Absolutely.
So we have one representative potentially. And so in the charge of this committee, it would be meeting with liaisons from the other large employers and organizations in our district, fostering transparency and communication with other large organizations and the general public, expressing shared goals through, and I'm just going to combine the two sentences that I read earlier, partnerships and formal agreements. And if we can explicitly write engaging with elected officials. Did we miss anything that would be essential for a community engagement committee?
No.
How about if we write this up formally and put it in a next agenda to be voted on? Does that sound okay for everyone?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any citizens' comments? Young man? No? You sure? Last chance. So we've got, I guess we'll go around questions. If there's any director's comments. Joe, you want to start us off tonight?
I just want to say clearly, everybody from Corey down to Justin, they coordinated their color palette here tonight with these warm, a lot of colors.
Yeah.
Jordan and I, and
I threw it off.
but anyway, no, other than what I said, let's see
I just want to echo Jamie's comments, Bradley, I always go by no news is good news, and communication from special education area from outside folks has gone away, and that means that we're doing better, meeting the needs. So I appreciate everything that you've come and done and, keep it up. And thanks to our teachers tonight, great presentations. The coursework that they're doing sounds like we're developing future good citizens. Thanks.
Good. Save my voice for apparently whatever's happening at my house.
I just wanted to say one little item that I wanted to draw attention to. On our personnel report, we hired an additional full-time speech pathologist. And I just want to say thank you to our administrators for recognizing there is a need, and when there's a need, we need to meet it. And I think our community and the needs of our students is changing, and I don't think that's unique to Lewisburg. I think it's happening everywhere. And that's one of the hard, I don't want to say hard, but that's one of the complex things in public education right now is we need to be constantly evolving and constantly willing to make adjustments that we need to meet our needs. And we did that with this. So thank you very much.
Jordan?
The faculty and staff tonight, sitting at this table, Bradley and the folks who have left, it's amazing to see just across the whole district, just the passion and the interest that our faculty and staff exude. I mean, it's just amazing, hearing Vince diving into all the data reports. There's a lot of data in there, just to hear the knowledge, and again, Bradley, you spoke so passionately about that. So thank you to everyone who spoke, the teachers for taking their time this evening to come and present to us. Like I said, I'm just always amazed at how, just what a great faculty and staff we have in the district. Vince, thanks for putting this together. One thing that stood out to me was just there's a lot of jargon, a lot of acronyms that are always thrown out in the educational realm. I think you did a great job at breaking down those acronyms and putting it into layman's terms for our community to understand. So thank you for that.
I'll basically reiterate, I really enjoyed those course presentations. So that was pretty interesting stuff, which is admittedly not always the case for me, but it was good tonight. I liked it. And I'll give Aaron the last word and we will. Okay.
Yeah, I'll echo what everyone said. I thought the teachers tonight were fantastic. I loved hearing the math and the social stuff, talking about the news, talking about statistics, talking about, you mentioned Mr. Lupel talked about good use of data, and then Mr. Cook talking about the good use of like historical context. I just really enjoyed those. I missed a clip of the first one because I was deplaning. So thank you all for allowing me to join via Zoom tonight.
Is there a motion to adjourn the work session?
Someone.
Second.
Make it official. All in favor, I guess. There you go. Now it's.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Hey, pals.
Thanks.